Hi guys, today's lesson is going to be how to make this crocheted beanie. It has ear flaps and tassels and was originally designed by Brooke Till from Perth in Australia. She has very kindly allowed me to make a tutorial so that you guys can make one too. I hope you guys enjoy the video. We're going to need some yarn of your choice, a hook that is recommended for your yarn, scissors, sewing needle with a large eye, and some spare time. First of all, we want to start with our slip knot. Just make yours how you make it. And then we're going to chain 5. And then we are going to join into the first chain with the slip stitch. And I've been watching Teresa from TJW 1963, and I saw one of her videos once that did a single crochet in a chain 1 instead of doing a chain 3, and I always thought, oh, that's a bit strange, but you know what, it's come in handy with this beanie. So what we're going to do, instead of joining our chain 3 to count as our first stitch, we're going to be doing a single crochet and a chain 1. So we're going into the middle to work a single crochet. So pull up a loop and then pull through and chain 1, and this counts as our first stitch. So we're going into the middle and we need 12 double crochets altogether. That first single crochet and chain 1 counts as our first stitch, so that's number 2, 3, 4, 5, and as I go I'm working over my tail, just laying it next to the ring, and then working my stitches normal. And that gets trapped in there so we don't have to sew it in later. So we're just doing our doubles all the way around until we have 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And now we are going to, instead of joining to the top of the chain 3, because we don't have one, we're going to join into our chain 1. So this is our single crochet stitch here. And our chain 1 are these 2 loops here and here. 1 and 2. So we're going to get our hook. We're going to grab the first bit and the back bit with our hook. We should have a loop underneath the hook as well here, and then bringing up a loop with a slip stitch, and that's our first round. So our next round we're going to do a single crochet and chain 1. And what we're going to do, we've created this tiny little hole here. It's a little bit hard to see on camera, just there. So we're going to go in there with our hook, draw up a loop, and then complete our single crochet and a chain 1. And don't do your chain 1 too tight, because this is where we use it later on the next round. So we need to do another stitch into that same stitch. So yarning over for a double crochet, going into the same stitch that we just did our single crochet into, and completing our stitch. Excuse me. Then in our next stitch we're going to do 2 more stitches, and this is called an increase when we do 2 stitches into the one. And we're going to be repeating this all the way around, so that our 12 stitches become 24. So we just increasing in every stitch around. Until we come back to the beginning. I'm just going to speed up a bit so that the video isn't too long. Okay, up to our last stitch here, and we're going to do an increase in that one as well. And then we're going to check to make sure we've got 24 stitches. So that's number 23, and 24 is your single crochet in your chain one. So we are going to slip stitch into the chain one space. So here is our single crochet, and our chain one is here. With a slip stitch, and now we have the second row of our beanie. And now we're going to do a single crochet back into that stitch there with that little tiny hole, with a single crochet, and chain one. In the next stitch, which is here, we're going to work an increase. That's 2 into the same stitch. In the next stitch, we're just going to work 1 into the next stitch. We're going to work an increase. So that's 2 in the same stitch. In the next one, we're just going to do 1. In the next one, an increase. So you're going to repeat that all the way around. So that's 1 in the next, 2 in the next, 1 in the next, 2 in the next, and repeat that all the way around till you get to the beginning. So our next stitch is my last one, and we always end on an increase on every row. It's always an increase, and you know if you don't end on an increase, you made a boo-boo. So now we're going to slip stitch to the chain one, which is here. This is our single crochet stitch here, and that is our chain one. So we're hooking that first and back stitch, and then making a slip stitch, and see how the seam doesn't stand out very much, where normally there's that funny bridge that drives me absolutely balmy. So now we're going to go into the next, into that same stitch there with a slip, with a single crochet and chain one. Our next stitch is going to be just one by itself, but our next stitch is going to be an increase. And as we go along, each row is going to have one more stitch in between our increased stitches. So we've got 2 at the moment, because on the previous row there's our increase, there's our single stitch, there's our increase, so there was 1 in between the increases. Now it's going to be 2 in between the increase. So our next one is one by itself, the next one is one by itself, and the next one is an increase. And if we look back, we've got 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase. So repeat that around. 1, next stitch, 2, next stitch, and increase. So repeat that all the way around till you get back to the beginning. So I'm up to my last stitch, and it's an increase, remember, because it always has to be an increase. So now we're going to slip stitch to the chain 1 space. Here is our single crochet and our chain 1 is there. So we're hooking that first loop and our second, making sure we have one underneath. See, I don't have one underneath, so I haven't done it right. Hooking the first and the second, making sure I have a loop underneath. Yes, I do. And then slip stitching. Realise this is a bad hook for this yarn because it's the same colour. I don't think I have another colour. So now we want to do our single crochet. So see this hole here, going into there and working our single crochet. And our chain 1, don't forget to do it not too tight, otherwise you won't be able to get it on the next row when we come back around and join. So now this row, we've got one by itself, that's another one by itself. On the previous row we had 2 stitches in between our increases, so now we need 3 stitches in between our increases. So that's 1, 2, and these are all in their own stitches, 3, and then an increase. So that's next stitch 1, next stitch, that's our second, next stitch, that's our third, and now it's an increase. So that's 2 into the same stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, and an increase. And you're going to repeat that around until we get back to the beginning. So how do we know when our hat's big enough? Mrs. Foamy is going to demonstrate. Now see, this is at the top of the head. What we need is when we put our hands up beside the head, it needs to touch our fingers. And it's not. This is really hard to do. I'm stretching over my camera. Let me see if I can bring it closer. There we go. So that needs to touch my fingers before I stop increasing. So I've got quite a few more rows to go. So if this is on a baby's head, and a baby's head is probably only going to be that big, it's touching your hands. You don't need to do any more increase rows, and then you'll just do 1 in each stitch. This is an adult size, a small adult size head. So I need to go until it is reaching my fingers. This is going to be for about a 2-year-old. It's for my gorgeous little nephew. So this is going to be Mrs. Foamy is going to be too big for him because he's got a smaller head than her. So I might not need to do as many rows. But yeah, so that's how you can judge to see if a beanie fits you. So I've done my last stitch, which was my increase, and now we are going to slip stitch into the chain 1. This is my single crochet, and my chain 1 is here. Now you should begin to start to know where it is now without me even showing you. So we're doing a slip stitch, and then we're working a single crochet back down into that same stitch that we slip stitched into, and then we are going to chain 1. And I don't need to make any more increase rounds, mine is big enough now, but if you need to, you do 4 stitches in between your increase. So it'll be one there, one in the next, one in the next, and one in the next. That'll be 4 stitches, and then an increase. And you would repeat that all the way around, and your following row would have 5 stitches in between your increases, and so on. So now all we want to do is do 1 stitch in every stitch around, and then we join and repeat that until the beanie is long enough. So I've finished my beanie and I've cut off the end. Now we need to start on the ear flaps. And I like to put the seam at the back of my hat. So I'm just folding it in half, making sure the seam is in the centre. And this hat is for a 2-year-old, so my ear flaps aren't going to be as big as what you would make it for an adult. So I'm thinking I'm going to go 5 stitches from the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the same on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we're going to crochet in between these marks. You can put in a stitch marker, or we can just join our yarn into that stitch that we've marked here. Put your hook in, lay your yarn over the top, hold it and pull it through, dropping the short piece at the back, then doing a chain, pulling down on the short piece, and that will secure that down into there. We are now going to be working with, so we're going to be doing our single crochet like we do to start off our row. So going back into the same stitch, we are going to complete our single crochet and then chain 1. Going across, I need to do 10 stitches, going through both loops of the stitch. Until I have 10. I have my 10 stitches. Now I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to do a single crochet back into that first stitch, and then I'm going to chain 1, working across till the end. Until I have my 10 stitches. Okay, so this is my last stitch, and going to crochet into the chain 1 space, which is here. Tricky to get that there. That's all good. And then you're just going to repeat this for a few rows. I'm probably going to do about 5 rows and then see how big our ear flap is. So here we go. Here's our hat after our 5 rows. You can do as many rows as you like. You might not need as much. So now what you want to do is fold the hat and making sure this is in the center. This is where we'll know where to put our other. So if you fold your hat flat, fold it up, and then fold that like that. That will show you where your halfway mark is. So do that again. You just fold your hat down till you think it's in the middle. Fold the hat over evenly. And then if these two bits match up, you know that it's completely folded in half. So we're going to cut off this yarn here, and then just pull the loops through. You can sew them in now, or you can crochet them over when you do the next row. So now we want to add our other ear flap. So lining up the bottom of the beanie, just lining it so it's nice and even. Then you're going to mark the stitches that are underneath these ones here. So that stitch there, and then joining your yarn, going for 10 stitches or however many that you had to do on yours. And working it exactly the same as the other side. So now we have our hat with our ear flaps. So now let's add the border. And your border is going to be the same colour that you are going to use for the eyebrows of your owl. I am going to be using this lovely bright blue colour. And let me show you this contraption that I got made, or a gentleman made it. His wife comes to our group. I'm going to have to lay it down so you can see what it is. It's just a spike on this, and it twists around. And what you do is you put your ball of wool over the top, and when you pull your wool, it just spins around. How cool is it? Oops, it's hard to do because it's supposed to be down on the floor, but you get the idea. Just thought I'd share that with you. It's my first time using it. That's pretty exciting. So now we want to attach the yarn. Now I would attach it on the back, just in case you are able to notice the join. So I'm just going to join it any old place. So hook into the stitch, yarn over the hook, pull through, drop the short piece, pick up the long piece, chain one, pull in at the back. And first of all, see, I've made a mistake there, guys. I've got the inside of the beanie facing me. You want the outside of the beanie facing you. Otherwise, your stitches that we put on now are going to be back to front, so you'll be looking at the back of the stitches. So you want to be looking at the front of your work, not the inside of your beanie. I'm glad I made that mistake because it is a very common mistake to make if you're not paying attention. So doing our single crochet, joining our yarn. And here's an optional one for you. You can either single crochet all the way around, or you can do half double crochet all the way around, or you can do a reverse single crochet. It's also known as a rope stitch or a crab stitch. And what we do is we yarn over, no we don't yarn over because it's a single, so we go into the next stitch, but we're going to the right, not to the left. Going into the next stitch, yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through two, and going into the next stitch, yarning over. So we're just doing a single crochet bit normally, but we're going to the right of our work, not the left. So Okay, so into the stitch, and when we get to our ear flaps here, working into the end stitch there. Try not to work into that part because it'll make that hole get even bigger. So into the end stitches there. It will feel really awkward at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. You're going to feel like you've gone back to learning again. Oops. See, it's quite different to normal. It's always when the camera's on. And when we get to the corner stitch on our ear flap, so this is, oh man, one of them days. So this is the bottom of our ear flap here. In here and in here we're going to do 3 stitches, and what this does is it helps it go around the corner and it won't pucker up, and this will make it sit flat. So that's 1. You can do 2 if you like. I think I might just do the 2 and then work your way across the, this is the bottom of the ear flap. Yeah, I just worked the 2. I think the 3 was going to be too many. See how it's sitting flat there? It's not curling over. That's what you're aiming for. And I'm just working over this tail that we've got from the previous row that we have to cut off. So you're working 2 into the corners, and of course you'll do this on the other ear flap as well. So work this all the way around until you get back to the beginning. So now we have our beanie with our ear flaps and our border. Now we're going to work on the tassels. Now we're going to cut some strands of yarn between 50 and 60 centimeters long, because we are going to fold them in half and then we're going to plait them. I've cut about 12 strands, and what we want to do is then divide that in half, and I've used the colours that are in my beanie. So here's an eye, and I've got black, the light blue and the white, and then I've got the grey and the blue on the beanie. So pick your colours from any colours that you're using on your beanie. So the blue is the border, the grey is the beanie, there's white and the light blue for the eyes. And then we're going to put these into 2 piles. And I've got 2 lots of these. So I've got this one, and I've also got this one here. So altogether there's 12 strands in that one and 12 strands in that one. So then divide this pile in half. So you've got your 2 lots. Then we're going to go to the beanie and find the 2 centre stitches. It doesn't have to be exact, just as long as they're in the middle. We're going to put our hook through our stitch, and then we're going to find the halfway point of our strands, put them over our hook, pull tight and pull through. And grabbing the loop, we're going to put the strands through the loop and then pull down, holding on to the beanie just pulling, and then we're going to put the other one next to it. Pulling through all of the strands. And then pulling down on the strands. So we have all of our strands like this. Then we're going to divide them into 3 equal sections.